My name is Kelly. I work here at Kritik, which is a peer assessment platform. So what do we mean specifically by community when we're talking about it in the context of post-secondary institution? We are talking about shared identity, number one. So students sharing an identity, kind of rallying behind the values, the mission, the vision that the institution has. We're also talking about shared spaces, so opportunities for students to come together physically or could be virtually as well. So in terms of how peer assessment can contribute to creating community within a class, number one is that it encourages collaboration and interaction, right? So instead of just the professor grading the assignment, now you're adding this extra layer of peers having to grade each other. And hopefully, especially if you're using a technology tool like Kritik, you're also allowing them to be evaluated by multiple peers, not just one person. So now they're seeing multiple perspectives. They're getting multiple ways of receiving that feedback from their peers, and they also have to learn to give feedback to multiple pieces of work as well. A lot of the time when we talk about peer assessment, the natural inclination is to think that it works really well for writing assignments, and that's true, but something like peer assessment can work for pretty much any type of assignment. It's not so much about the type of activity that you're doing. It's really just shifting the mode of the assessment, right? So really any kind of activity or assignment can work with peer assessment. It just depends on how you know your students best, how you think they're going to learn the material best, and what opportunities you want to give them for peer assessment. And again, like that last point says, understanding the difficulties faced by others helps build a compassionate and empathetic community where students support and encourage each other. One of my favorite stories that I heard was from one of our professors who teaches a class of 1,400 students. And her students loved Kritik so much and loved the peer assessment element of it and saw the value in it that they actually asked her to do more of it. So she created this thing called Club K, where there were these optional activities that her students could do, and just kind of have extra opportunities to interact and also get that additional concept reinforcement as well. And it's interesting because sometimes one of the big objections we hear to peer assessment is it's not going to work well, my students aren't going to be nice to each other, but you actually would be surprised the number of students who are very kind to each other actually. And they want their peers to do better because they also want to get good evaluations. Like they want to get meaty evaluations that have meaning and value to them. So they want to give that to their fellow students as well. And a lot of the times they're not just giving, one or two sentences of critique, they're actually giving paragraphs, which is really, really cool to see. And I think that part of that is from creating that kind of environment where there is trust and there's respect. We've had a lot of students tell us that before they submit their work, they're a lot more conscious of what they're submitting because they are much more likely to take the word of what their peers are saying seriously than that of their professor. Sad but true. So we do hear that quite a bit. And that allows them to enable their own, to identify their own strengths and weaknesses and then kind of grow personally themselves as well. I do want to share just a few quotes from our users. Of course, that's our experience, but I think a lot of these do apply to peer assessment in general. So from one professor who was a nursing professor at University of British Columbia, she says, Kritik has replicated some of the sense of community, even anonymously, that students were missing in an online environment, so she's teaching online. And we do hear that time and time again. I'm actually working with another professor right now who's teaching asynchronously, so it really can kind of help foster that community because it's not requiring them to be in the classroom in order to interact with each other and collaborate on things. And then finally, this marine science professor at the University of Miami teaches over 150 students. She mentions that Kritik added a whole new level in allowing students to have more opportunity to practice what they are learning. Just in her use case specifically, I happen to know who this is. She was really struggling to have her students have opportunities for assessment that were beyond just multiple choice or quizzes, or just kind of those random spot checks, and really allowed them to get more personalized feedback quickly. And that's what this allowed her to do. So she mentioned that they found the feedback from their peers to be incredibly motivating, and that hearing it from 3 different students was a lot more eye-opening to them than just hearing it from her alone.